What's going on, guys? Super Insane 18 here, and with the release of Photon Hypernova, the branded deck actually got a lot better than it was previously because we got some new fusions as well as some other new support in general. So let's go ahead and show you guys the profile. We're also going to show you a combo at the end, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Let's jump on in. Alright, so to kick things off, we are playing 3 copies of Fallen of Albaz. Now, previously in any other branded deck that I've done, I've never wanted to play more than 2 of this card, but we are playing another spell card that makes me want to maximize out on the number of Albaz, as well as with Kashtira existing, and how many cards they're going to banish from your deck face down. I feel like you're forced to max out on this just to make sure that you don't lose just to them hitting them. So I think 3 is the correct number moving forward. You still could potentially get away with 2, it's just I'm a little too scared of how represented Kashtira is going to be in order to justifiably keep it at 2. We are playing 1 copy of Blazing Cartesia. This is a card that I've also considered bumping up for the same reason of I don't want it to just be milled or banished face down off the top of my deck, because it is a very crucial piece to the combo, but we're already above 40 and I can't see anything else to cut for it, so we are only playing the 1, but this is definitely something that you could consider playing more than 1. I wouldn't play more than 2. 2 would be the absolute max, but I have considered bumping that up. We are playing 2 copies of Tri-Brigade Mercurier. With one of the new fusions, this is a must-have in the deck, not to mention it is just a really good combo piece. Again, make sure you stay tuned until the end of the video for that combo. But not only that, it is also a monster effect negate as long as you control a Fallen of Albaz, so it is pretty strong there. And then we are going to be playing the 1 copy of Albion the Shrouded Dragon. Again, it is a piece for the combo, but not just that, it's technically also a consistency card because you are able to, from your hand, send a branded spell or trap to the graveyard from your deck while this is in your hand, and put this at the bottom of the deck and draw a card, so it just kind of gets you an additional resource. Onto the Despias. It is a very small Despia count because Despias are nowhere near as important as they once were. The only one that is important still is the Aluber Jester of Despia. This is obviously your searcher for any of your branded spell traps, so we are going to be playing it at 3. It's the best normal summon of the deck, not just that, but we also have the ability to summon it from our deck off of a card like Branded Opening. And then the last of the Despias, we are only playing 1 copy of Tragedy and 1 copy of Ad Libitum. These cards are nowhere near as important as they once were. The Tragedy, obviously, because we're not playing that many Despia names. The Ad Libitum is really cool if you can do it, but if you can't, it's not the end of the world, especially not with the broken fusions that we have now. Now, we are still main decking Bystials, and you might be thinking, why are you main decking Bystials? Tearlament just got absolutely destroyed. Personally, I think Tearlament is still going to be the best deck in the format, but that is besides the point. For this deck specifically, Bystials are actually combo pieces, and that is why we are playing 3 copies of Bystial Lubellion. Big shout out to my buddy Jacob. He's actually lending me 2 of these. I only own 1, and I wanted to play 3 for the profile, because this card is absolutely insane, as you'll see again in the combo at the end of the video. You want to be able to search for your Bystials, that way you can use them on your own turn for extension as well as other niche plays, which is why we are playing 2 copies of Saronir, because Saronir is the best of the Bystials to have in this specific deck, because once it goes to grave, you get to Foolish a branded spell or trap, which just kind of adds a little bit more of a consistency boost to the deck, and you'll see why a little bit later on in the profile. Other than that, we are just playing 1 Baldrake, 1 Druis Worm, and 1 Magnamut. Even though I still do predict that Tyr is going to be the best, we don't want to just max out on these because they are bricks in a sense. That's why we play the 3 of Lubellion, just to search them when we need them. Other than that, if you have them, you have them. If you don't, you don't. Again, they're combo pieces. You don't really want to flood your hand with them. Onto the hand traps, we are playing 3 copies of Ash Blossom. I think Ash Blossom is an incredibly strong card moving into the next format. Now, with only 1 Chiron and 1 Havnus, being able to Ash either of their effects puts a really big damper on their board as well. Not to mention, Sprite is still going to be in good contention. Flu, despite the hit to barrier statue, is going to be in good contention. But more importantly, I believe that Kashtira will be the most represented deck, at least for a while. And if you can Ash Blossom the Kashtira Theosis, it's pretty much just game. So I think that this is one of, if not the best hand traps right now. And then we are main decking a copy of Nibiru. Now, for a while, or 3 copies of Nibiru. For a while, Nibiru wasn't exactly a good card. Most decks weren't really susceptible to it. Sprite was able to do Gigantic, which would lock you out of it. Tearlament didn't care because they'd get all their effects, so on and so forth. But right now, this card absolutely destroys Kashtira. With the way that Sprite has to play now, especially post-banlist, Sprind is the most important combo, and in order to get to Sprind, they are going to need 5 summons before they would lock you out of Nibiru. The only caveat to that being if they were able to summon an early Sprite Red. So I think Nibiru is incredibly strong right now, so that is why we are maining it. But that's it for the monsters. Onto the spells. We've got 4 different one-ofs. We are playing 1 copy of Branded in Red. This is just to set off the Albion during the end phase. We are playing 1 copy of Branded in White. This is kind of like a Miracle Fusion as long as you use Fallen of Albaz, and it is searchable during the combo, so make sure, again, you stay tuned for that. Our 1 copy of Branded Lost. Because of the Bestial Lubellion, we are able to just activate this from our deck, which makes it really, really good. You no longer really have to search it off of something like an Aluber, you can just activate it for free. And then we are playing the 1 copy of Branded Regained, kind of the same logic there. You can just set it off of your, off of the Lubellion, and it just gets you a little bit of advantage on both turns. Now, we are playing 2 copies of Fusion Deployment. This is the spell that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, which is why I want to play Albaz at 3, because this is kind of how you play through Ashing the Branded Fusion. Now, if you've played Branded before, you know that Ashing the Branded Fusion is pretty much a turn ender, but if you have something like Fusion Deployment, you can potentially continue to play, because it can summon your Albaz from the deck. Not just that, though, because we got the new Cartesia Fusion Dragon, you can also summon Cartesia from the main deck, which is very, very strong, so I think that playing this at 2 is really good. We are playing 3 copies of Allure of Darkness. Consistency is the name of the game, not to mention when you're playing cards like the Mercurier or the Tragedy, you can get additional effects off of banishing them, so you just want to play as many consistency cards as you can. The star of the deck is obviously the 3 Branded Fusion. This is the bread and butter and what makes the entire deck work. We have 3 copies of Branded Opening. This is to make sure that we are able to see a way into the Aluber. And that is it for the spells. Onto the traps. We are playing 1 copy of Branded Beast. Again, we can activate this from our deck off of the Lubellion if we don't need the other pieces. And then the Branded Retribution. This is a new addition because of the Saronir line. The Saronir will send this to the graveyard, and then this will be able to banish itself to add back a Branded Spell or Trap, which we will show you when we get to that combo. That is it for the main deck at 43. Let's go ahead and show you guys the extra. So, kicking off the extra deck, we are playing nothing but fusions because the deck does fusion lock us. So we do have 1 of the new Cartesia Fusion. I'm gonna butcher the name, but it's like Grangungial or Grangunal, the Dusk Dragon. This card's really cool because you can send a level 6 or higher light or dark from your main or your extra deck to the graveyard, which does facilitate some pretty nutty combos. Not just that, but you are able to essentially tag it out during your opponent's turn, which you can then use to go into any of your Despian fusions in the extra deck, which can come up. We are playing 1 Brigand the Glory Dragon. This is just another name for Mirror Jade to send, but not just that, it also lets you search for a copy of Mercurier during the end phase when it is in the graveyard, so that is how you can get that in your hand as an additional hand trap or interruption. And then we are only playing the 1 Lubellion the Searing Dragon. This card is nowhere near as important as it once was, especially with the new combo lines, so we really only need the 1. I know a lot of you might be thinking you want to play it at 2, that way cards like Mind Hacker can't rip it out of your extra deck, but I promise you there are more important cards in this deck for Mind Hacker to rip, which, speaking of, is the reason we are playing 2 copies of the Rindbrum the Striking Dragon. This card in and of itself is absolutely incredible. It's essentially a 1 card out to the entire Kashtira board, which is why I want to play 2 of them. That way Mind Hacker can't snipe it out of the extra deck and leave me hanging. So I think 2 of this is the correct answer just because of how popular Kashtira is going to be. We have our 2 copies of Albion the Branded Dragon. This is just standard as well. Not only is it a really good option to summon, but more often than not you are going to be sending it to the graveyard from the effect of Mirror Jade, which is what you are going to be doing to be able to activate the Albion effect in graveyard, which will get you your Branded Spell or Traps during the end phase. We have 2 copies of Mirror Jade. Again, this is kind of just the boss monster of the deck, even though there are some cards that I would consider better than it at the moment, especially in this extra deck alone. I still think that this is an incredible card, and it's a non-target banish, so you're able to get rid of things that you otherwise wouldn't be able to get rid of. We're playing 2 so that it doesn't get ripped out. We are on one copy of Masquerade the Blazing Dragon. I really want to play 2 of this, honestly, because there are a lot of times where, like, you get a brick hand or your opponent stops you, and 2 of these can come up, and then you put them on a timer because they're taking 1200 for every effect. But I just can't find the room because I feel like everything else is so crucial. So if you guys want to play 2, definitely play 2. Not sure what you'd cut for it, but I think that 2 is potentially the correct number. Then we are playing 1 Despian Queritus and 1 Despian Proskinian. Really just kind of generic staple cards for the deck. They're really good to have. The Proskinian you can summon off of the new Dusk Dragon, like I mentioned earlier. Then we have our Garura, Wings of Resonant Life. This is actually part of the combo as well as a Super Poly target. Super Poly is not in the main deck, but it is obviously something that you would probably side in this deck. The 1 copy of Predaplant Dragostapelia, just because it's Dragostapelia, and the 1 copy of Guardian Chimera, because this card is probably just the best fusion in the deck. You can use it really easily, and you'll see why in this combo, so let's go ahead and show it to you guys. So that combo that I promised you guys is going to be a 2-card combo using both Aluber and Lubellion. This seems to be the typical 2-card combo that is floating around. That is what you are trying to aim for as your first turn play every time. That's why we max out on the Lubellion, because it is so crucial and important to this combo. Let me show you guys how it works. We're going to start our turn by normal summoning out our Aluber, which will use its effect to add us our copy of Branded Fusion. We can immediately activate the Branded Fusion, and this will send the Fallen of Albaz as well as the Tri-Brigade Mercurier from our deck to the graveyard, and that is going to allow us to summon the Rindbrum Striking Dragon. This is now the first form of interruption that we have for our end board already, but the most important part is that we sent that Mercurier to the graveyard. The reason that is important is because now we can use the effect of the Bestial Lubellion. We will discard it to add a copy of Saronir from our deck to our hand, and this is why I said in the profile that the Bestials are combo pieces rather than interruptions, because we're going to use the Saronir to banish out the Tri-Brigade Mercurier from our graveyard, and that is going to allow us to activate the effect of Tri-Brigade Mercurier. When it's banished, you can add either a Fallen of Albaz or a monster that mentions it, meaning that we can add our copy of Blazing Cartesia. Here now we can go ahead and tribute out the Saronir. This is going to allow us to reborn out our Bestial Lubellion, and not just that, it will then activate the effect of the Saronir, allowing us to Foolish Burial a Branded Spell or Trap, meaning we'll be able to send the Branded Retribution from our deck to our graveyard. Here we can then use the effect of our Bestial Lubellion to get our copy of Lost face up on the field, and Lost is going to not only make it so that they cannot respond to our fusion summons, but we are also able to search for additional cards when we fusion summon as well. Because there is a Fallen of Albaz in grave, we are allowed to special summon out the Cartesia, and then we can activate its effect to fuse itself and the Aluber into the new Dusk Dragon. Now, this is going to activate both the Dusk Dragon as Chainlink 1 and the Lost as Chainlink 2. Lost is going to go ahead and add us our copy of Albion the Shrouded Dragon to our hand, and the Dusk Dragon is going to send a copy of Garura from the deck to the graveyard, or from the extra deck to the graveyard. This will activate the effect of Garura, giving us a draw. So for example's sake, we're just going to go ahead and draw Nibiru, just to show you that the draws don't matter, because Nibiru isn't an extender. So whatever you draw doesn't have to play into the combo, it can be literally anything. Here we are going to be able to activate the effect of the Shrouded Dragon, sending our copy of Branded in White to the graveyard, putting it at the bottom of our deck, and then drawing another card. Again, for example, is just going to be the Nibiru to show you that you do not need to draw into additional extenders. Now what we can do is we can go ahead and activate the effect of our Branded Retribution. We can banish it from our graveyard to add the copy of Branded in White back to our hand. Now, because we still have a Fallen of Albaz in our graveyard, we can use the Branded in White to fusion summon using monsters from the graveyard by banishing them. We're going to go ahead and banish the Garura as well as the Fallen of Albaz, which just so happens to be the materials that we need in order to make a copy of Mirror Jade. So now one of the really cool interactions of this deck is here we can activate the Mirror Jade effect and send the Albion from our extra deck to our graveyard as cost, and because an extra deck monster activated its effect, we can actually use Rindbrum's effect to target and negate the Mirror Jade. Now keep in mind that the effect to then bounce a card is entirely optional, so we don't have to bounce anything on our field, and what that does is it not only prevents our Mirror Jade from banishing one of our own cards since this is turn 1, but we are also allowed to now use Mirror Jade on the following turn, because if you use Mirror Jade's effect, you cannot use it on the next turn, but since it was negated by the Rindbrum, we are still live. The most important part of this was that we were able to put the Albion in the graveyard, that way we can activate its effect in end phase. So this is going to be our end board, but we still have a few other things that we can do, because in the end phase, we'll be able to use the effect of Blazing Cartesia to add herself back to hand, as well as the effect of the Albion the Branded Dragon, which is going to set a copy of Branded in Red to our side of the field. Now, we have a very, very threatening board here because there are a lot of interruptions that we have. Not only are we +1 in hand advantage, we started with 5 cards, we now have 6. Because we used a 2-card combo, we have 3 cards that were added back, plus the 3 that we still have from our original hand. We have a Mirror Jade interruption, which is going to send another copy of Albion, which will then be able to get more advantage in the end phase. Not just that, we have an interruption with the Rindbrum, we'll be able to negate an effect and bounce a card as well. We have a potential interruption with the Dust Dragon being able to tribute itself and summoning out either the Quiritus or the Proskenian. And we have our Branded in Red. Now, Branded in Red is going to get us a few forms of interruption, because we still have a Despia in Graveyard. We have the Aluber, Jester of Despia, meaning that we can activate this, and the card that we are most likely going to go into is a Guardian Chimera. Now, depending on what materials we use, whether we use more from hand or more from field, that determines whether we get 1 pop 2 draws or 2 pops and 1 draw, but either way we are going to chain block the effect of the Guardian Chimera with the effect of Branded Lost. Branded Lost will then be able to also search us for a copy of Tri-Brigade Mercurier, which, since we have 2 fusions that mention Albaz, acts as another monster effect. So I believe, if my math is not off, that is 7 interruptions off of a 2-card combo with a full hand of 6 cards, and that's going to be the combo. And there you guys have it. That is going to be my post-Photon Hypernova branded deck profile. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I think this deck is really cool moving forward and potentially fixed some of the issues that I've originally had with the deck ever since its conception, which is you just lose to an Ash on the branded fusion. With the addition of some of these cards, hopefully that is not the case, and hopefully you guys enjoyed that combo and learned something. If you did, you guys know the deal. Make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, like, comment, share with your friends, maybe consider supporting me on Patreon. If this video gets enough likes, maybe I will do a full dedicated combo tutorial video, because there are plenty more combos other than that one I showed you guys. So if you want that, make sure to smash the hell out of that like button. That is the only way to let me know that that is what you guys want. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.